You say love fades, fades in the wind, like a tempest of the heart.
I'm thrilled to have Dennis Jung with us here on Author's Corner, this time around on America Tonight with me, Kate Delaney, because boy, is he a prolific writer. So the book that we're going to talk about, and we're going to definitely mention some of his other novels, is the Siren's Refrain, his 9th book. And it's a little bit of a departure from things that he's written in the past. He has such an interesting path that he's taken in his life and the road to writing. So Dennis, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
What led, first of all, we got to talk about that. You were a pediatric nurse practitioner for 4 decades. What led you to writing? Did you always like to write and tell stories?
Yeah, I was probably writing from, 7th grade and stuff like that. And I was a prolific reader at a very early age. So I've always sort of done some on and off writing, but I probably didn't start writing any kind of serious stuff until the last maybe 20 years of my life. And those mostly were travel logs, because I did a lot of traveling in the Pacific. In Southeast Asia, and I wrote a lot of letters back home. Anyway, I digress there, but...
Nice, though, but obviously you had a talent for it. So this particular book, The Siren's Refrain, I set it up that it was a departure from other things you had written. Tell us about that. Tell us about what you've written in the past and what this novel is about.
Well, my other stories are, like I said, are sort of character-driven action stories, and they have their fair share of intrigue and suspense, and they maybe take place in a backdrop of Syrian refugee camps, conflicts in the Middle East, Central American aftermath of conflicts there, some criminality, cartel stuff. And this is a completely different story. This is more of a relationship story, and it concerns itself with a 25-year-long on and off again love affair between these two complicated individuals, and the bonds that sort of nurtured it and enabled it and eventually challenged it.
Yeah, and tell us about the main character, Leon Reiser, and what's happening in his life, and there's another curveball to what he's done in his life and where he's at.
Yeah, Leon Reiser is this 60-year-old and a guy who's a renowned writer of travel logs, and he's facing not only middle age but terminal cancer, in this case multiple myeloma. And he's sequestered himself in this cabin up in the Colorado Rockies, and his sole companion is this young Japanese woman, his private duty nurse, Fumiko Sato, who becomes sort of an integral character in this story. But he receives a visit from his stepdaughter, his 21-year-old stepdaughter, Iris, whose mother is this mercurial Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter by the name of Luann Catskill. And at this point, Leon and Luann are sort of estranged and haven't spoken in 4 or 5 years. But Luann has sort of gone off the reservation and left her current husband and his whereabouts unknown. So Iris has come to sort of enlist Leon in helping locate her. And he puts aside his physical limitations, and out of sense of obligation, Iris agrees to accompany her as far as Santa Fe, where Luann was last living. And their initial efforts sort of come to naught, and the trail eventually leads to Austin, Texas. And the rest of the story is sort of told in alternating points of view between these two main characters, where they replay in their minds or in accounts they give to their fellow travelers, where they replay these seminal chapters in this very complicated relationship these two people have had.
And what's so interesting about Leon, too, is he's a renowned travel writer and novelist. So they say you write about what you know, and this is some biography kind of mixed in here.
Well, my affinity for travel, and I'm probably a frustrated travel writer, and Leon's profession allowed me to take the reader to a lot of interesting locales as this story sort of plays out. I mean, they revisit where they first met in Tahiti, and it goes to different places like a concert at the Greek Theater in LA, to a house on the Big Island of Hawaii, a remote lake and outside of Managua, Nicaragua, the Yucatan, West Texas, Honolulu, Austin. So there's a lot of interesting sort of locales where this story plays out.
Yeah, it's an interesting book, because I think part of it is that you want to go to all these places that you take us to, and and you pull us in, Dennis. You pull us in, and it's very tough to put down, very, very tough. And it is a romance. It is kind of a tug at your heart sort of thing. You talked about the years, the complicated relationship for you, because you've written so many other books too. What was it like when you sort of birthed this book and it came out? What did that feel like when you finished?
Well, I wanted to, when I envisioned this thing, I wanted to explore themes of mortality and aging, something that's sort of close to me with my advancing age. And, there's a lot of, you get to a certain point in your life and there's a lot of introspection, retrospection, and you think about roads taken and not taken and choices you've made, and those kind of musings sort of inevitably lead to thinking about relationships and the experiences that sort of colored your life, so to speak. And so that was the genesis for this story.
Yeah, and you could feel it. You could feel it. I want to make sure we tell everybody you can get Siren's Refrain on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Plus, you have a website that's amazing. Tell us about the website.
Yeah, my website is Dennis Jung, one word. My last name, by the way, is spelled Jung, like Carl Jung. So it's DennisJung.com. Yeah, so my website has first chapters. It has short essays about each one of these stories, and sort of how they came about, and where the genesis for all these.
Yeah, where they came about. Yeah, like you said, so it's great because you get pulled into the stories and you can see, this story is for me for sure. So the Siren's Refrain, when people read this novel, what do you hope they take away?
Well, like I said, we all have, I think, like I said, as time goes on and you get older, everybody has, I think, these relationships that were very important in their lives, and like I said, I've replayed that for these two people, and they, like I said, they have a very complicated past and persona, and I just wanted to sort of capture something about that complexity of relationships, so as time, with the passage of time too.
Yeah. And you feel that's the whole taking us through the timeline, the locations, all of that. And I know you're working on yet another novel. So tell us about this one.
Well, this one's actually sort of a sequel to a novel that I think will probably be coming out in December. It's the one that's coming out in December is called The Uneven Surface of the Soul, and it's one of the main characters is a woman who's sort of an outlaw. She's led a very hard, complicated life, and in this novel that's coming out, I sort of became a little bit intrigued with her and enamored with her. So I tried to keep her in this new novel that I'm working on. And a lot of my characters are sort of gray characters. They're not black and white characters. They may be very damaged individuals, and this is. She is definitely falls into this kind of a category. But anyway, so that's what's going on in this latest novel. And I have to say that there's a lot of my novels that steal characters from a previous novel. I mean, one of the characters in the one that's coming out is already in two or three other novels, and so I steal characters quite often. I have a series of 4 books with one female protagonist that's the main character in 4 of these novels, and it sort of deals with 10 years in her life. But
yeah, and we started off, so people know, with the song. We're talking about the Siren's Refrain, and tell the listeners about how that song came about.
Well, I think I don't know how many chapters there are in Siren's Refrain, maybe close to 40, I guess. But anyway, at the beginning of each chapter, I opened it with some short lyrics that I wrote, but I attribute to this character, singer-songwriter Lou Ann Catskill, where they're her lyrics. So I opened up every chapter with these lyrics, and it was an interesting exercise to do that. And I've always had this this appreciation for songwriters and explore their lyrics. And so that's sort of where that character came from, was my affinity for singer-songwriters. And so I wrote lyrics that I attributed to her. And in fact, I've got a friend by the name of Tom Frost, who's a singer-songwriter who just finished a CD, producing a CD, and there's a song on there called the Siren's Refrain that he and I sort of stole lyrics from this book and co-wrote these lyrics. And
yeah, and that's the song we heard. So at the top of this, so it just kind of pulls it all together for sure. We look forward to your next novel, and again, the Siren's Refrain. You can get it in so many different places. Dennis, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Kate. Have a good one.
You today.